The Valkoran Empire had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years. In all that time, no species had ever defeated them in war. No species had ever refused their demands. The Korath warrior caste was the reason why. The Korath were monsters by any standard. They stood 9 feet tall. Their skin was covered in natural armor plates that could stop energy weapons. They had 4 arms, each one strong enough to tear through steel. Their eyes could see in complete darkness. They could survive in the vacuum of space for short periods. They were built for war, and they had never known defeat. Every species in the galaxy knew the stories. When the Korath came to your world, you had 2 choices: submit and become part of the Empire, or fight and be destroyed. Most species chose to submit. The ones who fought became examples for the others. Ambassador Xyrith had served the Empire for 300 years. He was old for a Korath, but still deadly. His body carried the scars of 100 battles. He had personally killed thousands of enemies in service to the Empire. Now he served as a diplomat, which in Korath terms meant he delivered demands and watched species kneel. His ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an unremarkable star system, a yellow sun, 8 planets. The third one supported life, Earth. The humans had been discovered 6 months ago by a Valkoran survey ship. The initial reports were not impressive. The species was young. They had only developed faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. Their bodies were soft and weak. They had no natural weapons. They could not survive harsh environments without protection. In short, they were nothing special. Xyrith expected this visit to take less than a day. He would land on their capital world. He would deliver the Empire's terms. They would submit. He would return home. His ship entered orbit around Earth. He looked down at the blue and green world and felt nothing. He had seen hundreds of worlds like this. They all looked the same after a while. The human government sent a message asking him to land at a place called Geneva. Xyrith agreed. It made no difference to him where the submission took place. His shuttle descended through the atmosphere. He brought 12 Korath warriors with him, not because he expected trouble, but because proper protocol demanded a show of strength. The shuttle landed in front of a large white building. Thousands of humans had gathered to watch. Xyrith studied them through the shuttle's sensors. They were even smaller than the reports suggested. The largest of them barely reached his chest. He stepped out of the shuttle. His warriors followed. The crowd went silent. Xyrith could smell their fear. It was the same on every world. The first sight of a Korath warrior always produced fear. It was a reasonable response. A group of humans approached. They wore formal clothing and carried no weapons. The one in front was a male of average height, with gray hair and calm eyes. He did not smell afraid. That was unusual. "I am Daniel Porter," the human said. "I speak for the United Earth government. Welcome to our world." Xyrith looked down at the small creature. He had to admit the human showed courage. Most species could not even speak when faced with a Korath for the first time. "I am Ambassador Xyrith of the Valkoran Empire. I bring terms from the High Council. We are happy to hear them," Daniel said. Xyrith pulled out a datapad and read the terms. They were the same terms offered to every species. Humanity would become a subject race of the Empire. They would pay tribute. They would provide workers and soldiers. They would obey all Valkoran laws. In return, they would receive protection and access to Imperial technology. Daniel Porter listened without expression. When Xyrith finished, the human nodded slowly. "Thank you for explaining your position," Daniel said. "But I am afraid we must decline." Xyrith was not sure he had heard correctly. "Decline?" "Yes. We will not submit to your empire. We wish to remain independent." The Korath warriors behind Xyrith shifted. This had never happened before. Not once, in 12,000 years. "You do not understand," Xyrith said. "This is not a request. These are terms of surrender. You will accept them, or you will face the full might of the Valkoran military." Daniel Porter did not flinch. "We understand perfectly, and our answer is still no." Xyrith studied the human carefully. He was looking for signs of madness or stupidity. He found neither. The human knew exactly what he was saying. He simply did not care about the consequences. Your species has existed among the stars for only 2 centuries, Zyreth said. We have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. You cannot hope to defeat us. Perhaps not, Daniel said. But we will not kneel. That is not who we are. The words were spoken simply, without anger or fear. Zyreth found himself intrigued, despite his confusion. He had broken the spirits of mighty warriors. He had crushed resistance movements that had fought for centuries. But this small, soft creature looked at him without fear. There is another option, Zyreth said slowly. A tradition among my people. When a new species shows unusual spirit, they may earn the right to negotiate as equals. Daniel raised an eyebrow. How? Combat. Your strongest warriors against ours. If you win, you earn the right to negotiate. If you lose, you submit. The Galactic Council would be watching. They always watched when a new species was conquered. Zyreth knew that a combat challenge would draw viewers from across the galaxy. The conquered species always hoped to see the Korath defeated. They were always disappointed. Daniel Porter was silent for a long moment. He looked back at the other humans behind him. Some kind of silent communication passed between them. Then he turned back to Zyreth. The human was smiling. We accept your challenge. Name the place and time. Zyreth felt something he had not felt in many years. It was not fear exactly. It was more like anticipation. He had grown bored with easy conquests. Perhaps these humans would provide some entertainment before they fell. The neutral world of Thessar. 30 days from now, bring your strongest. They will need every advantage. Daniel Porter's smile did not waver. We will be there. Zyreth returned to his shuttle. As it lifted off, he looked down at the human delegation. They were not celebrating or looking worried. They simply stood there, watching him leave. For the first time in 300 years, Ambassador Zyreth wondered if he had made a mistake. But that was foolish. No species had ever defeated the Korath. These humans would be no different. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. A new species had refused to submit to the Valkoran Empire. More than that, they had accepted a combat challenge. Every species that had been conquered in the last 12,000 years stopped to watch. They had all hoped for this moment. They had all dreamed of seeing the Korath defeated, but they had stopped believing it was possible. The Korath chose their champions within a day. 5 warriors from their elite bloodlines. Each one had been trained since birth for combat. Each one had been enhanced with the finest biotechnology the Empire could provide. Each one had killed more enemies than they could count. Vorax the Unbroken led them. He was the greatest warrior in the Empire. In 300 years of combat, he had never lost a fight. He had never even been seriously wounded. His name was spoken with fear across 1,000 worlds. The humans had 30 days to prepare. General Lisa Grant was put in charge of the selection process. She was 52 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had served in 3 wars and commanded soldiers on 4 continents. When the president asked her to select humanity's champions, she did not hesitate. I will find our best, she said, whatever it takes. The problem was defining what best meant. Reports came in from every nation. Elite soldiers volunteered by the thousands. Special forces operators from every country offered their services. Scientists suggested genetic enhancement programs that could be completed in the 30-day window. Lisa rejected all of it. We cannot match them in strength, she told her staff. Their weakest warrior is stronger than our strongest human. We cannot match them in speed. We cannot match them in natural armor. If we try to fight their kind of war, we will lose. Then what do we do? Her aide asked. Lisa pulled up a file on her screen. It was a report from a zoologist who studied predators. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, she said. We cannot run as fast as most prey animals. But we can run longer. We can track them for days. We can follow them until they collapse from exhaustion. That is how our ancestors hunted. She switched to another file. This one showed human soldiers in various conflicts throughout history. And we have another advantage. We do not give up. Other species break when the situation becomes hopeless. We do not. We keep fighting, even when victory is impossible. We would rather die than surrender. Lisa began reviewing candidates with a new set of criteria. She was not looking for the strongest or the fastest. She was looking for the ones who could endure. She found Kevin Moore on the third day. His file was not impressive at first glance. He was 34 years old. Born in a small town in Oklahoma. Average height and build. No genetic enhancements. No special training beyond standard military. But his service record told a different story. He had served 3 tours in combat zones. His first unit was wiped out in an ambush. He was the only survivor, dragging 2 wounded soldiers to safety over 8 miles of hostile territory. His second tour, he held a defensive position alone for 18 hours after his entire squad was killed. He refused to retreat even when ordered. His psychological evaluation was the thing that caught Lisa's attention most. Subject displays unusual calmness under extreme stress. Does not exhibit normal fear responses. When asked about fear of death, subject responded, "Everyone dies. Might as well make it matter." Lisa called him in for an interview. Kevin Moore arrived exactly on time. He was not tall or muscular. He looked like anyone you might pass on the street. His eyes were the only thing that set him apart. They were calm and steady, like a man who had already accepted whatever was coming. "You understand what we are asking," Lisa said. "The Korath are the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. No one has ever defeated them." "I understand," Kevin said. "You may die. In fact, you probably will die." Kevin shrugged. "Everyone dies, General. Might as well make it matter." Lisa found herself smiling. It was the same thing he had said in his evaluation years ago. He meant it now just as much as he had meant it then. "Why do you want to do this?" she asked. Kevin thought about the question for a moment. "Because someone has to. Because if we do not fight, humanity loses everything. And because I do not like being told to kneel." Lisa selected him as team leader that same day. Over the next 3 weeks, she built the rest of the team. She chose soldiers who had survived impossible situations. She chose medics who had saved lives under fire. She chose snipers who could stay still for days waiting for a shot. She chose people who did not know how to quit. 12 soldiers in total. Unremarkable by galactic standards. No powered armor. No energy shields. Just standard combat gear and conventional weapons. The Galactic Council sent observers to watch their preparations. The aliens were not impressed. "These are your champions?" one observer asked. "They are so small, so fragile." Kevin Moore looked at the alien. He was at least 2 feet shorter than the observer, and probably weighed half as much. "Size is not everything," he said. The observer laughed. "Against the Korath, it is everything." "You do not understand what you are facing." Kevin did not argue. He simply went back to training. The team trained for 20 hours a day. They ran until their legs gave out, then ran some more. They practiced fighting in every environment. They learned to communicate without words, using only hand signals and eye contact. They learned each other's strengths and weaknesses until they moved as a single unit. On the last day before departure, Lisa Grant came to see them off. "The galaxy is watching," she said. "They expect you to lose. They expect you to die. Prove them wrong." Kevin looked at his team, 11 soldiers who had chosen to walk into almost certain death. They did not look afraid. They looked ready. "We will make them remember us," he said. "Win or lose, they will remember what humanity can do." The transport ship lifted off. Earth grew smaller in the viewport until it was just another dot of light among the stars. Somewhere ahead, the Korath were waiting. Kevin closed his eyes and slept. He would need his strength for what was coming. The planet Thessar had been used for combat challenges for thousands of years. Its surface was covered in rocky terrain, dense forests, and ruined structures from forgotten civilizations. It was the perfect arena for war. Millions of broadcast drones filled the sky. Every species in the galaxy was watching. The conquered races hoped for a miracle. The Valkoran expected another easy victory. The human transport landed at the designated zone. Kevin Moore led his team out onto the rocky ground. The air was thin and cold. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth. Perfect conditions for the Korath. Terrible conditions for humans. Kevin did not complain. He simply noted the challenges and adjusted his plans. Across the arena, the Korath transport landed. The ground shook as 5 massive warriors stepped out. Vorax the Unbroken led them. He was the largest Korath Kevin had ever seen, standing nearly 10 feet tall. His armor plates gleamed in the pale sunlight. His 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through steel. The 2 teams approached the center of the arena for the traditional meeting before combat. Vorax looked down at the humans. His mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile. "These are your strongest?" he asked. "They are children. I have killed bigger creatures for breakfast." Kevin looked up at the massive warrior. He felt no fear. Fear had left him years ago. Somewhere in a burning building with his dead squad mates. "We are ready when you are," he said. Vorax laughed. The sound echoed across the rocky landscape like thunder. Brave words from such small creatures. "I will make your deaths quick. Consider it a mercy." The arena master, a neutral alien from a species that had never been conquered, announced the rules. The combat would continue until one side was completely eliminated. There would be no surrender. There would be no retreat beyond the arena boundaries. The battle would begin at dawn. Both teams returned to their starting positions. Kevin gathered his team in a sheltered ravine. He looked at each of their faces. Michelle Adams, the team medic, who had saved lives in 3 different wars. Chris Bennett, only 22, who had already survived 2 deployments. Amy Sullivan, the best sniper Kevin had ever worked with. 9 other soldiers, each one chosen for their ability to endure. "They expect us to fight their way," Kevin said. "Strength against strength. If we do that, we die in the first hour." The team nodded. They had trained for this. "We fight our way," Kevin continued. "We run when we have to. We hide when we have to. We strike when they do not expect it. We make them chase us until they drop." He pulled out a map of the arena that their scouts had prepared. "The Korath are strong, but they are used to easy victories. They have never faced an enemy that refused to stand and die. We are going to teach them what humanity can do." Dawn came slowly. The pale sun rose over the rocky horizon. Somewhere in the distance, a horn sounded. The battle had begun. The Korath charged immediately. They were used to enemies who tried to meet them head-on. They expected the humans to form a defensive line. Instead, they found empty positions. Kevin had moved his team during the night. They had split into 3 groups and taken positions in the rocky hills surrounding the main approach. When the Korath charged through the open ground, they walked into a crossfire. The first volley of fire hit Vorax's second in command. The Korath warrior stumbled but did not fall. His armor absorbed most of the damage. He roared in anger and charged toward the nearest firing position. He found nothing. The humans had already moved. This pattern repeated for hours. The Korath would locate human positions and charge. The humans would fire a few shots and disappear into the terrain. The massive warriors could not catch them. Their size and weight made them slow in the rocky landscape. The humans slipped through gaps the Korath could not follow. By midday, the Korath were frustrated. They had not killed a single human. They had not even gotten close to one. Vorax called his warriors together. "They run like prey," he said. "They are cowards." One of his warriors, a younger Korath named Threx, disagreed. "They are not running from fear," Threx said. "They are drawing us out. They are testing our patterns." Vorax dismissed the concern. "They cannot hurt us. Let them run. Eventually they will tire, and then we will crush them." But the humans did not tire. As the first day ended, Kevin's team had mapped every Korath patrol pattern. They knew where each warrior preferred to rest. They knew which ones were impatient and which ones were cautious. In the darkness before the second dawn, they struck. Threx had separated from the main group to investigate a possible human position. He was the youngest of the Korath warriors, eager to prove himself. He never saw Amy Sullivan. She had been lying motionless on a rocky ledge for 8 hours. Her body temperature had dropped to match the rocks around her. Her breathing was so slow that even Korath's senses could not detect it. Her first shot hit the joint between his armor plates at the neck. Her second shot hit the same spot before he could react. Her third shot went through the gap and into his spine. Threx fell. The sound echoed across the arena. Every broadcast drone in the sky turned to capture the image. A Korath warrior, one of the mightiest in the galaxy, lay dead, killed by a human they had dismissed as prey. Across the galaxy, billions of conquered beings watched in silence. Then they began to hope. Vorax heard the shots and came running. He found Threx's body, but no sign of the attacker. The human had vanished into the darkness like a ghost. The Korath champion stood over his fallen warrior. For the first time in 300 years, he felt something he did not recognize. It was fear. The death of Threx changed everything. Vorax gathered his remaining warriors. 4 Korath against 12 humans. The math should have been in their favor. Each Korath was worth 100 soldiers from lesser species. They had faced worse odds and won. But these were not soldiers from lesser species. These were something else entirely. They killed Threx like prey kills a hunter, one of the warriors said. His name was Korin, and he had fought in a dozen campaigns. This is not natural. Something is wrong with these creatures. They are just soft things with guns, Vorax said. Threx was careless. We will not make the same mistake. But as the second day turned into the third, 2 more Korath fell. The first was Malik. He was tracking a group of humans through a dense forest when the ground collapsed beneath him. The humans had spent the night digging a pit and covering it with thin branches. Malik fell 20 feet onto sharpened stakes. He was still alive when the humans appeared at the edge of the pit. They did not waste ammunition. They simply waited for him to die. The third Korath, Vessen, fell to a trap of a different kind. The humans had noticed that he preferred to rest in shaded areas during the hottest part of the day. They left a wounded soldier in one such area as bait. When Vessen approached to finish off the wounded human, 3 other soldiers rose from hiding spots around him. They fired at the joints of his armor from 3 different angles. By the time Vorax heard the shots and arrived, Vessen was dead and the humans had vanished again. They had taken their wounded soldier with them. Vorax stood in the center of the arena as the third day ended. Only he and Korin remained. 2 Korath warriors against what the sensors suggested were still 7 functioning humans. The humans had lost 5 of their own, but they had killed 3 Korath. That alone was unprecedented in the history of the Empire. We should call for reinforcements, Korin said. That would be admitting defeat, Vorax replied. The Empire would never allow it. We would be executed for cowardice. Then what do we do? Vorax looked out at the rocky terrain. Somewhere out there, 7 small, soft creatures were waiting. They had no armor. They had no claws. They could not survive in vacuum or see in darkness. And they were winning. We hunt, Vorax said. We find their base and we destroy them all at once. They spent the 4th day searching. They found old camps, empty supply caches, and signs of movement. But the humans were never where the Korath expected them to be. Kevin watched the Korath from a hidden position high in the hills. His left arm had been broken during a close encounter on the 2nd day. Michelle had set it and given him painkillers, but it still hurt with every movement. He did not care about the pain. Pain was just information. It told him he was still alive. They are getting desperate, he said to the team. They know they cannot win a long fight. Their bodies burn energy too fast. They need to eat twice as much as us, just to keep moving. Michelle nodded. She was running low on medical supplies, but she had kept everyone fighting. Chris Bennett had taken a wound on the 3rd day that should have killed him. She had patched him up in the field, and he had returned to combat within 6 hours. How do we finish this? Chris asked. He was pale from blood loss, but his eyes were steady. We give them what they want, Kevin said. They want a final battle. We will give them one. But, on our terms, he pointed to a structure on the map. It was a collapsed building from whatever civilization had once lived on Thesser. Large enough to hide a team, but unstable enough to be dangerous. We lead them here. We make them think they have us trapped. Then we bring it down on their heads. The plan took another day to prepare. The humans worked in shifts, some resting while others set charges and planned escape routes. By the end of the 5th day, everything was ready. Kevin sent out a lone scout, making sure the Korath saw him. Then the chase began. Vorax took the bait. He was tired of hunting shadows. He charged after the scout with all the speed his massive body could produce. Korin followed close behind. The scout led them through a narrow canyon, past a series of rocky outcrops, and finally into the collapsed structure. Vorax burst through the entrance and found Kevin Moore waiting for him. The human was alone. His left arm hung useless at his side. His face was covered in dried blood. He looked like he could barely stand, and he was smiling. Finally, Vorax said, "No more running. No more hiding. Just you and me." Kevin looked up at the Korath warrior. Vorax was 3 times his size and could kill him with a single blow. "You still do not understand," Kevin said. "Understand what? I do not have to beat you. I just have to keep you here long enough." Vorax heard a sound behind him. He turned and saw Korin enter the building, following him in. Then he heard the beeping. "What have you done?" Vorax asked. Kevin's smile did not waver. "We learned about your species. You are strong and fast, but you cannot survive being buried under 1,000 tons of rock. Neither can we. The difference is that we do not care." The charges went off. The building came down. Dust filled the air for nearly an hour. The broadcast drones circled the collapsed structure, trying to find any sign of movement. Billions of viewers across the galaxy held their breath. Nothing moved. Then a hand broke through the rubble. Michelle Adams pulled herself out of the debris. She had been positioned at the edge of the structure, far enough from the center to survive the collapse. Her body was covered in cuts and bruises, but she was alive. She began digging. Chris Bennett emerged next, then Amy Sullivan. One by one, the surviving humans crawled out of their hiding spots along the edges of the building. They had known the plan. They had known the risks. They had accepted them. 6 humans remained standing. Kevin Moore was buried deeper than the others. It took nearly an hour to dig him out. When they finally pulled him free, his body was broken. His left arm was crushed completely. His ribs were shattered. He was bleeding from wounds they could not count, but he was breathing. Michelle worked on him frantically. She had almost no supplies left. She used pieces of her own clothing as bandages. She used rubble to create splints. She did everything she could. With nothing, Kevin opened his eyes. "Did we get them?" he asked. Michelle nodded. Tears were running down her face, cutting tracks through the dust. "We got them both. They are buried under 100 feet of rock." Kevin smiled. It was the same calm smile he had worn since the beginning. "Good. That is good." He closed his eyes again. Michelle thought he was dead, but his chest kept moving. Somehow, against all odds, he was still fighting. The arena fell silent. Across the galaxy, the conquered species watched in disbelief. The broadcast drones had captured everything. They had seen the Korath champions charge into the building. They had seen the structure collapse. They had seen 6 small, broken humans emerge from the rubble. They had seen the impossible. Ambassador Xyrith watched from his ship in orbit. His hands were shaking. In 300 years of service to the Empire, he had never seen anything like this. He opened a communication channel to Earth. Daniel Porter was waiting. "Your warriors have won," Xyrith said. His voice was quiet, almost respectful. "The Korath champions have fallen. Humanity has earned the right to negotiate as equals." Daniel nodded slowly. "We appreciate the recognition, but we did not do this for recognition." "Then why? You must have known you could not win." The odds were against you from the start. Daniel looked at something off-screen. Perhaps it was a report from the arena. Perhaps it was news about Kevin Moore and the other survivors. When he turned back, his expression was unreadable. We knew we might lose, he said. But we also knew that losing was not the worst thing that could happen. Surrender was worse. We would rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Xyrith was silent for a long moment. He was trying to understand these creatures. They were weak by every measure that mattered to the Korath. Their bodies were fragile. Their lives were short. They had no natural weapons, and yet they had defeated the greatest warriors in the galaxy. You have earned more than equal standing, Xyrith finally said. You have earned our fear. Daniel shook his head. We do not want your fear. We want peace. We want to live our lives without the threat of conquest. That is all we have ever wanted. You could have that. You have proven yourselves. The Empire will not trouble you again. Good. Then we have nothing more to discuss. The communication ended. Xyrith sat in his command chair and stared at the image of Earth on his screen. Such a small world. Such a fragile species. Such a dangerous enemy. On the planet below, the surviving humans were evacuated to a medical ship. Kevin Moore was kept alive by machines. The doctors said he would never walk again. His body was too damaged. Kevin told them to give him time. 6 months later, he was walking. A year later, he was running. 2 years later, he was training new recruits for the Earth Defense Force. When asked how he had survived, he always gave the same answer. I was not finished yet. The story of the Battle of Thessar spread across the galaxy. Conquered species told it to their children. They called it the day hope returned. They said that if 12 ordinary humans could defeat the mightiest warriors in the galaxy, anything was possible. Some species began to resist their Valkoran occupiers. Small rebellions at first, then larger ones. The empire that had ruled for 12,000 years began to crack. And it all started with a species that refused to kneel. General Lisa Grant gave a speech at a ceremony honoring the survivors. She stood before a crowd of millions, broadcast to every human world. We did not send our strongest, she said. We did not send our fastest or our smartest. We sent 12 ordinary soldiers. People who had families and friends and dreams. People who could have lived safe, quiet lives. She paused and looked at the 6 survivors sitting in the front row. Kevin was there, walking with a cane but standing tall. We sent them because they represented what humanity truly is. Not our best, our average. And they proved that our average is enough to shake the foundations of an empire. The crowd cheered. The sound echoed across the planet and out into the stars. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Valkoran High Council was meeting in emergency session. They were discussing what to do about the human problem. Some wanted war. Others wanted peace at any cost. But they all agreed on one thing. They had sent their strongest into humanity's storm. Their champions had been the greatest warriors in the galaxy, undefeated for thousands of years. None of them had emerged to tell the tale. And if that was what ordinary humans could do, the Council did not want to find out what would happen if humanity ever truly went to war. The storm was just beginning.